Hello, and thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so glad you are here. If you are new here, please make sure you subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss any new videos. Make sure you click the red subscribe button and you also click the notification bell. So nice to have you, Mponang, on the show. It has not been easy to bring you on the show. You are a very busy woman.
Yes, I can be quite elusive sometimes.
But I really appreciate you. I appreciate the heart that you have to serve the nation and to serve the nations. And that's the reason why you created this time to come on the show. I have started recording, and ladies and gentlemen, we are so privileged this afternoon to have Matlhogonolo Mponang, a lady who does not need any introduction. Do you need any introduction, Mponang?
It's all right, Dr. Mutoko. No, I mean, I think everybody does, assuming that you would be quite arrogant.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool,
no,
cool.
But you don't need to introduce me. People can always Google. I get it. They can always Google and make assumptions or look us up.
Yeah. Now I'm pushing you so that you can start talking. You know, the vibes can start coming in.
Sure.
Yes. So Mponang is the head of HR at Beers. At one time, she was also DED, Corporate Affairs, at the Botswana Accountancy College. She has done quite a lot of things, and she's doing quite a lot of things. She's a mentor to many people, and I think it's proof because we have quite a number of people that are joining us today because of the heart that Mponang has. Some of the things that she has done is that she has served on the Westwood International School Council as Deputy Chairperson and HR Committee Chair, on the Water Utilities Pension Fund as Chairperson of the fund. She has further served on the Botswana Medical Aid Fund Board. It's a long story. The World Young Women's Christian Association Council, Karat Foundation, and so many others. Mponang, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Wilbert.
What would you want to say to a young Matlhogonolo out there for us to have you, for us to be benefiting right now? Who is Matlhogonolo? What would you say in your own words?
I think in a lot of ways, I'd describe myself as somebody who is very much, invested in continuously seeking and growing and learning. I'm just one of those people that I just tend to always look for the better argument in anything or in anybody. I think, nothing real is perfect. A lot of people forget when they're seeking perfection that, if you're seeking perfection, it's not going to be real. It's part of the reason why my video is off, actually, because I haven't been able to spruce myself up the way that you're looking. You're wearing royal blue and looking very good, I can see. But at the end of the day, I think, when all is said and done, one of my favorite sayings, or one of the things that I like saying the most is when all is said and done, more should be done than said. So what I would say to a young people is, a young person is go out into the world. I think it's a universal truth that most of us want to rage at injustice. And it's a universal truth that, raging against injustice also means that you purposefully work towards ensuring that you address injustice, and that in your own space, in your own way, in whatever small way it is, you actively and with intent move towards working in a way that takes away any kind of injustice. And when I say injustice, I think it's a topic that's very, very close to my heart, because I'm anybody who knows me really well knows that I'm very big on social justice. I just think that the world's problems would be solved if all of us were to be aware or have an awareness about how the way in which we use our power ultimately carves the world that we will leave behind. Like there's this whole notion of you have to ensure that you plant trees during your own lifetime so that people that come after you will be able to sit under the shade of those trees that you would have planted in your lifetime. I'm a huge believer in that. I'm a huge believer in young people really understanding that power is not positional power. Power is not positions. Oftentimes when people That's why when you said would I, you wanted to introduce me, I was very intrigued to hear how you would introduce me, because a lot of the times I think people will literally introduce you and speak to the titles that you've held, the places that you've worked at, and this is no criticism to you, because I know you're not that shallow, but it's almost like a lot of the time we forget that power is a matter of influence, not position, and influence is a construct of how much you lend yourself to the world and how much you actively seek out solutions in the world. So I think that's what I would say to a young person who's coming into their own, that you should really define yourself and define your own power and really, really own the things that sometimes can be seen as being your development areas. You have to have a sense of awareness, self-awareness, and in having a sense of self-awareness, you know those things that are triggers to bad behavior, you know those things that will propel you forward. And so that is, in short, if that was short, to say, that is what I would say to a young person.
Thank you so much, Mponang. Highly appreciate it. You know, you didn't say a lot of things, but you said a lot of things.
Yes, it does happen.
Because at the end of the day, I am privileged to know you. I am privileged to have worked closer with you. And what I've seen in you is exactly what you have just been saying, that when we talk of leadership, we are not talking of position. We are talking of serving. We are talking of making an impact in other people's lives.
Absolutely. And collaboration. I mean, a huge part of what this program is about, or at least what I think you brought me on to talk about, is the fact that I think a lot of the times leaders forget that they're nothing without their pack. People talk about the strength of a wolf. I think the true strength of a wolf is not its fangs. It's not how fast it can run or its skill. It's in the pack. You have to, as a person or as any individual, have your pack. You have to have people that, when, the expression that show me your associates and I'll tell you who you are. It's very important that there should be a particular characteristic to those that you move with. I'm just a huge believer in social capital. I'm a huge believer in what I spend my political capital on. Like if I have to make a decision of, okay, am I really going to stand for this person's success? Is the person even standing for their own success? If I'm going to go out of my way to say, okay, I'm going to spend time with this person. The one thing about me is that I can literally give you anything that is material. I find it quite easy to give anybody who asks me for anything, or even if they don't ask, anything material, I'm very, very able to share. But the one thing that I do not share easily and as lightly is my time. I value my time. And I also, I'm very, very careful about who I take into my fold or under my wing, and who I also, actively go out there to say, I endorse this person as an individual. And my endorsement is not a construct of you being such and such a person's child, or you having achieved all of these, or attained all of these material possessions. My endorsement is really about you being a person of integrity. Wow. I have a great deal of difficulty in dealing with people that have a passing relationship with honesty. I have a preference for people that are very honest, that are committed to honesty, that are committed to those values that can take not just this country, but Africa and the world forward and humanity forward. And so one of the things about leadership is that you're only as good as your team. You have to be able to empower other people. You have to also understand that as a leader, you're a first amongst equals, but you're not better than others. You might have attained whatever position before them, but I mean, a leader is supposed to inspire and to cajole and to, my leadership style is such where I just believe in letting people grow and letting people make mistakes, also listening, also sometimes admitting when I'm wrong, which is not always easy, but it's a necessary and it's a requisite quality within a leader.
Amazing. That's really, really lovely. I like what I'm hearing. Now, to the participants, we are extremely honored to have you. If you have any questions for Mponang, or you need some clarifications while we are going on with this discussion, please feel free to send in a chat I will definitely make sure I read it out and we talk about it, or Mam Mponang talks about it. So thank you so much, Mam Mponang, so far. I think you have touched a bit on some of the things that I'm going to ask you. But I'm just thinking, could there be, apart from the fact that you love learning, I know you have a BSc in psychology, and you are a reader, an avid reader, and you're always learning, and you are one of those, in my own words, you are one of those high flyers that are humble. I find you to be that kind of person, regardless of how far you are going in your career. It doesn't seem to matter much to you. Like you are saying, for you, it's about influence, it's about touching the lives of others. It's not necessarily about the position. Now I'm wondering, okay, apart from learning, could there be something else that contributed? Could it be your upbringing? Could it be, I don't know, what else could have contributed such that you are that kind of a person? Because majority of the people we see who are doing well, particularly in their career, hey, they are untouchable. You can't get closer to them. I don't know whether you could say something to that.
I think, you know, I grew up, I think I speak about this a lot. I grew up being, in a sense, very much bullied as a kid. So I had to kind of develop elephant skin from a very, very young age. I also, for some reason, you know, unbeknownst to me, and I think all of us we're creatures of the social engineering, you know, which is the part where, you know, how we've been raised, what we've been exposed to, and we're, you know, and then we have intrinsic qualities. There are qualities that I was born with naturally, and then there are qualities that I've had to pick up along the way, that I've had to, you know, I've had to learn certain things. I think I've been very blessed, you know, starting off with my parents who, you know, my mother was a teacher. You know, my dad worked in the mine, but he believed in education because he didn't have a lot of education, and I was galvanized, you know, throughout my life towards something greater within myself because of the people that I happen to interact with. You know, in life you'll meet people that will understand the notion that sometimes you have to get burned to pull someone from a fire. You know what I mean? So I've tended in my life, or God at least has exposed me to people that were willing to get burned in order to pull me from a fire. You know, sometimes you have to be cruel in order for you to be kind. And a lot of people have shown me a lot of cruelty along the way of life. And at the time it felt really painful, but they were actually preparing me, you know, for what would come or what would evolve later on. The one thing about, you know, life at any given point in time, I've always had leaders that have taught me the importance of understanding that it all starts with yourself. It all starts from within. You know, there's absolutely, and it sounds like it's a cliche, you know, a lot of people will be like, yeah, you new age people, you know, who talk about, you know, motivating others and motivating self, you know, because there's a lot of Bayesian, and there's a lot of, people tend to joke a lot around the area of self-enhancement. I've traveled, I've been given opportunities where I've traveled the world. I've been given opportunities where I've met amazing people. And I really think those people have shaped my worldview. I really, really do believe that at a certain point in time, you know, the people that were willing to enable themselves to be used as instruments to guide me on my own journey, those people have shown me that it's possible to do that for other people. I think if all of us carried that ethos in life, it would take us far. And that's how you transform the world. You know, the world starts off, I mean, you look at what's happening in the United States today. It starts off with an incident where there's a man who's in a park and there's a woman with a dog. And, you know, then this whole, you know, chain of events takes place that is now documented and has been viewed by so many people around the world and interpreted and, you know, understood and being used as messaging, and has even, you know, given impetus to other movements. You look at years ago, when you look at the Arab Springs, what was happening in you know, in the northern part of Africa, in places like Egypt. I mean, those revolutions with young people, they started and they were birthed by technology. You look at right now, when you talk about the infusion of technology into our lifestyles, into our worlds, you know, for some of us who work in and I don't say this in any way, by the way, because some people will interpret it to be somewhat arrogant, but, you know, for some of us who do work in slightly more evolved work environments where, you know, best practice is not just a sentiment, but an actual deed and an action. We have been dealing with flexible working hours for quite a while now. So for me, you know, sitting where I'm sitting, the infusion of technology into the way that I work is something that, you know, the future world of work or the evolving world of work has been in place for quite some time, but it can still evolve and become better, you know, because anything can always do that. So what I'm trying to say is you are now seeing how people are becoming aware of the fact that you don't need to get on a plane every single time to have a meeting. You don't need to actually have people, you know, presenteeism. We've been talking about it for years as Africans, this whole notion of having somebody from 7:30 until 4:30. I mean, it's total rubbish. They could be sitting there from 7:30 till 4:30 on social media or doing all manner of things that are actually costing you money instead of being productive. It's really, the world is about output. It's about your participation in an organization. How does it impact on the bottom line? How does it unlock value, you know? So to answer your question, I was just exposed to that type of thinking from a very, very early age. And I've had a lot of amazing people come into my life who've shared and taught me so much.
I love this. I love this. Thank you so much. So in your own words, what would be your definition of a leader? Or what is your definition of leadership?
I think it's truth-telling, because I think at the very heart of leadership, you even see it, you know, really at the nexus of what I personally, you know, would say defines good or bad leadership for me. I think, you know, when you, and the world right now it's full of a lot of deception and a lot of deceit. I think when everyone lies, you know, telling the truth isn't just an act of rebellion, it's actually an act of revolution. So I think people should think very carefully when they speak and when they make promises, because, you know, the truth is something you can weaponize in a positive way, because you sit there, you tell the truth, you share your narrative, you own your narrative. So no one else can take your narrative and spin it, but you need to be consistent. The narrative needs to be consistent with the deeds. You know, that's just the thing about life. And so, you know, the people in life who believe that, you know, there are only two choices. It's either you can be the purchase or you can be the person who's being purchased. And I mean, I think it's a very cynical view, but it's also a very true view, you know, because it's represented in how you see everything designed within most societies. I think, you know, I'm at a point where I tire of having the same conversation year in and year out. I mean, a lot of things that, and I always say the best documents have been written, you know, about solutions within Botswana and within Africa at large. The central question for Africa, the central question for any environment is always and will always be leadership. And leadership are not necessarily just the people that are sitting at the top. Leadership is being able to self-lead. Leadership is like the greater leadership fraternity within an organization. Like if, you know, if there's an executive management of that organization, there will be, you know, executive managers, senior managers, middle managers, junior managers, supervisors, team leaders. All of those people are leaders. And then at the very, very bottom of that pyramid, so to speak, those people are self-leaders, because sometimes it's not about you being a follower of another person, but a follower of your own ideals, a follower of your own ability to understand the world. I mean, I say to people all the time, you know, you don't have to wait to say, I'm going to wait to be a leader. You don't need to apply into a job where you're going to be appointed by a man. You know, you have to answer to who you are centrally inside of yourself, to your core, and follow your calling. And your calling will take you to how you're supposed to serve in life. But central as well to, you know, something that I think is very core about leadership is that leaders need to understand, particularly when you're a leader who's going up vertically upwards, or your portfolio is growing horizontally, because growth is not just vertical upwards progression. It's also about the skill sets that you're picking up. And some people don't aspire to get to the very pinnacle of an organization. Some people just aspire to be able to grow, you know, within that chosen technical field. And I think whenever that happens and you're given those opportunities, front of mind should always be the reality that for those of us that work in organizations, it doesn't matter how high up the matrix you go, you're still in the matrix. And for those of for those people that are entrepreneurs that work for self and that are starting their own businesses, there's a relationship between, you being, a person who works for self and relying and having a dependency on those people that are seeking your skills from within the organization. And if those lines are very well drawn and respected, you'll find that even things like corruption will eradicate, because you have chosen to have a constant guaranteed monthly salary. That is your lot. It might not be as much as the person who's chosen to take the risk of being an entrepreneur, and they can go 6 months without a salary, and when they do get paid, it's like they've hit the jackpot. That is the reality of life. But if you want the best of both worlds, you have to also understand that there are risks, around that, which is why governance, I think, next to leadership, governance is one of the most important things for leadership and for progress within Africa and beyond. Because if you don't look at those fine lines, because certain things are not necessarily illegal, but they're unethical. It's not illegal for me to hire my brother or to hire my cousin or to hire my friend. It's not illegal. I can get away with it. I can do it, but is it ethical? No, it's not ethical. And these are some of the challenges and the constructs that one has to understand, and the nuances that one has to understand when one steps into a leadership position, because it comes with that level of responsibility. It's impossible for you to want to lead and for you to want to be there in the upfront and not expect to be interrogated and challenged and continuously asked to account. It's the right thing to do. The problem with where we are right now in the world is that a lot of leaders are left to not account, and a lot of leaders are feared, and people fear them. They don't revere them, they don't respect them, they revile them, they fear them, they keep quiet. And that, I think, is at the very heart of why sometimes we see a lot of non-progress.
Beautiful stuff. Thank you so much, Mponang. I like that leadership is being truthful. Because, when I look at a leader, I'm thinking of someone not necessarily in a position like you are saying, but somebody who is influential, somebody who has a vision, and they can build a team and motivate the team towards attaining the vision. But at the end of the day, a leader must be caring. You show care. By being truthful, you're actually showing that you care. And then we can eradicate things like corruption, like greed, like selfishness, and all those things. That's amazing. So would you go ahead and distinguish for us between leaders and managers?
Yeah, managers are barely, I always laugh and say, managers are barely managing to keep it together. But, okay. Managers are on a jokes aside or sarcasm aside, managers are quite operational. Managers are people that choose to get their hands dirty all the time and not to allow others to also delve in. I am most likely one of those people that I always say I abdicate to the point. I delegate to the point of abdication. That's what I wanted to say. I think sometimes the people that I've worked with, I think sometimes they just feel like, yeah, she's giving us everything to do. Some of them most likely just think she wants us to do all the work and she's not doing anything. But at the end of the day, I think for me, the reason why I know what I know now is because I was forced coming up in my career to really, really actively get my hands dirty and to really understand how things work. And you see, the thing is, one of my leaders, somebody who I find quite inspiring, once said something very, very profound to me. And we're sitting down it's a very interesting story. We're sitting down, we're in a boardroom, and as we're sitting there, we're talking. And I asked the question, and I said, but how come there are so few Botswana who are doing, this type of work? Or how come there are so few Botswana that are sitting at whatever level we were sitting in at the time? I don't want to give too much away because I don't want to be misquoted. And this person said to me, but Matthew, you forget that you have to make certain sacrifices, certain compromises. You have to be able to go to places where most people will fear to go in order for you to qualify to sit, in these chairs. And at the beginning, when he said it, I was like, yeah, that's interesting. And I kind of thought about it because I I'll mull on the things that people say to me when I'm having conversations. And, you know, as I started doing a lot of work with young people, I'd see how, you know, there'd be a differentiator between the young person who I know for a fact this young person is going to evolve to be an amazing leader at some point, and the other young person, you can see, this person is most likely going to get to a place where they're a manager, and they, you know, the people that think they've arrived, you know, and they've reached their destination, they don't understand that it's all a journey and it's never ending, that you never arrive. I kind of look at people that manage, or people that are managers, as people that look at the positional power, the title. You know, they don't understand that to galvanize people into action, you know, and to lead people into action means that, you know, your interaction with them is situational. There will be times where you dive deep and you work with people side by side with people. And then there are times where you have to just allow people to be, and allow those people that are your followers to also be leaders. I mean, it's you can actually be someone's supervisor, but, you know, allow yourself to also be led by that person. I've been led by people that report into myself. I've been educated by people that report into myself. I've been, you know, like sometimes I'll have a very, very strong opinion, and, you know, I have a very strong personality, and I'll have a stance, and initially I'm very unmoving from my stance, and I'm just like, you know, saying, yeah, this is what I think, and this is why I think this. And then the other person just, you know, very quietly and calmly says, yeah, you know, Meti or Matlhogonolo, have you thought about this, you know? And from that, you can hear the background, in the background, my kids are playing outside. I mean, and from that, I've been actually able to change my mind as well. I think there's a certain level of measure that you need to have, and critical thinking that you need to have, where you begin to understand that nobody has patented intelligence or knowledge, and nobody is all knowing and all seeing, that we are all collaborators. And I think a leader is somebody who has that understanding, who can also be led and be a follower, and can also lead. A manager is somebody who is, you know, I'm a boss, you know, I'm a big boss, I'm sitting here, I'm telling you, go do this. If you don't get it done, it's you know, it's hell and high water that shall descend upon you. And I think, you know, to extend on the question, Africa, a lot of African countries, certainly a lot of people sitting in positions of power, even within, you know, our current environment, are people that tend to lend themselves to managing rather than leading. And then the people that they work with don't ever get to test out all that knowledge. You look at the government of Botswana, you know, like government, proper government. A lot of people have been educated, a lot of people have been exposed, a lot of people are very, very intelligent, but a lot of them have also not been given an opportunity to test out that knowledge, because everything, to me at least, from a prima facie perspective, seems to be surrounded by so much fear. And it's a huge part of our culture as Botswana and as Africans as well. I don't think it's got anything to do with just the government, but the way in which we were socialized, to your earlier question, is such where we were socialized to sometimes be fearful. You know, from a very early age, we're constantly being told what not to do, instead of being allowed to just creatively explore and try things out.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So managers tend to be more transactional, I guess. They are more interested in making sure that the job is done. But leaders, yes, they want the job to be done, but they are interested in the life of the person they are working with. Would you say the same like that?
Yeah, I think the leader sees the bigger picture. You know, it's about seeing the entire value chain in anything. You know, just if for instance you work for Botswana Telecoms, let me just give an example. If you work for Botswana Telecoms and your responsibility is to go out there and market products, you go out there and market product, and then there are people that go and fit the product. Those people that fit the product have to ensure that the experience of that product being fitted and the experience of using the product, if it's data, for instance, if the data connectivity is not fast, if it can't allow you to stream, to watch Netflix, to download your content, to get on websites, you know, it means that the people that marketed, they could have marketed really, really well, but the people that are now, you know, ensuring that they deliver the experience, are not living up to the promise of what was marketed, what was promised, you know. And then after that, if, for instance, both the marketeer and the person delivering the product, you know, are very, very good and they're able to deliver that client experience, then the person then goes and tries to pay and they can't even get a bill on time, or the bill is coming and it's incorrect, or the bill has got, you know, or the bill is just, you know, it's not sent in a way that is convenient. Maybe it's still sent. I mean, who still sends bills by post office? You know, when you can, you know, WhatsApp a bill, when you can like even send a bill by email. And maybe the bill, the way that the bill is being delivered is the manner, you know, of transport, is the mode of transport is irrelevant. And then after that, after the bill, you can't even go pay because you try and go and pay and the system is down, you know. These are the things that sometimes you're like, these are revenue leakages all along, you know, like you get into a bank in Botswana, you'll be told, a person will tell you with great pride, the system is down, the system is down. It means that I cannot make money from you. You know, if you go into a bank and you say you want an overdraft facility, clearly if you want an overdraft facility, you want it because you are under urgent need of capitalization at that point in time. But this person is treating this whole transaction like they're doing you a favor, but no, you're not doing me a favor. I'm actually trying to buy money from you that I'm going to pay you back at interest. So, I mean, these are the things that you when you think about what a leader is, the leader should be able to look at the entire value chain, how it all ties together, and how, in a lot of ways, you can unlock value, because everything is about value. Hey, Dr. Mutoko, you know, it's not worth doing if it's not going to give us any type of value.
All right. Thank you so much, Mponang. So there is this debate, Mponang. Are leaders born or they are made? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a combination of both. I think it's a combination. And I need to say that when we talk about leaders being born, I very much resent the idea, and you know, I openly speak against it, of the creation of dynasties within leadership. You know, the idea that certain positions within a society are meant for so and so and so and so, you know, these names that have, you know, maybe been in leadership for generations because of privilege and because of, you know, the way in which power is used to influence certain decisions that enable others and disable others. I think, you know, I need to say this because a lot of the time when I've heard, you know, those people that belong to specific dynasties, then there's nothing wrong with coming from an influential family, but you should understand that it's not a birthright. You know, I think being a leader is a construct of you rising up to the challenge and seeing it within yourself. But everything is about how you were raised, what was instilled in you, what you were told growing up. I mean, in our culture, sometimes you'll find small kids being told, you know, you know, you stupid person, you know, that you're definitely not trying to raise a leader when you say that to a small child, because everything is sewn into a child's psyche from a very young age. But I think, to answer your question, it's a construct of both, but certainly you cannot be shy of working hard. I think, you know, for you to be able to access certain worlds, you need to not just do what others around you are doing, but to do more, to know more than they will know, to seek, you know, knowledge to its very lair, to challenge yourself in ways that are also very, very painful. Because the stuff of leadership is really about challenging yourself to even accept those things about yourself that are quite ugly. Because the only way that you can learn how to downplay them, or how you can learn how to control those things about yourself that are ugly, is if you have a recognition of it. Like, I have a very addictive personality. Like, anything that I do and I enjoy, I can easily get addicted to. Like, even something as good as working out. Sometimes I'll end up working out, I see results and I overdo it. After a while, people are like saying, yeah, you're beginning to not look healthy because you're overdoing it. Yeah, you know, anybody who knows me knows that, yeah, if you're sitting down, there's nothing wrong with drinking and sharing maybe a bottle of wine. I can get a bit intense. So I need to constantly remind myself of these things. You need to have an awareness of those things that will trigger impediments, and that will put impediments in your way and prevent you from growing to be able to utilize the greatest to rise to the greatest potential of who you are. Like right now, I'm not on social media. I have not been on social media for at least a good 2 months because it can get distracting, and I don't need distractions right now. I want to focus because there are certain things that I want to achieve within specific timelines to that right level of quality. And I'll get back to social media when I can, but you have to actively understand as you carve and curate your life and your leadership journey. What are the things that can hold me back? What are the things that can take me forward? Who are the people that can propel me forward? There are people that I avoid when I'm creating, when I'm focused, because the minute I'm around them, they just help me unleash this devil within myself. So it's a combination of both, Dr. Mutoko. It's both social engineering and biological engineering.
Thank you so much, and you have said it so well. You know what? I really, really resonate with what you are saying, because if we say leaders are born, we are saying that others who are not born into a dynasty or into a powerful family cannot lead. And then it goes back to what we call leadership. It goes back to the definition. Are we talking of positional leadership, or we are talking of influence? Are we talking of being truthful? And then obviously, if we say leaders are made, then it makes a lot of sense, because at the end of the day, who could have been born as a baby and probably they are put in a forest or in a hotel somewhere and they don't interact with anybody, and then all of a sudden they grow up, they become a great leader? That's not possible. We are impacted by the environment and everything else. So I like what you're saying.
It's a combination of both, Dr. Mutoko. I think it is possible for somebody to totally be removed from society and grow up to be a good leader, depending on how fast they learn and how they adapt and how they interpret the world. Not to disagree with you, but to say, I just think with everything that there are no hard truths, to these things. I think everything is a bit of everything, like my husband always says to me when sometimes when people are referring to others and referring to what others are guilty of, and he always says everyone is guilty of something. It's just a matter of degree. We all have our poison. It's just a matter of how well we know how to control that poison, because if you're going to delve into the poison chalice, you better have the antidote. The whole notion, like lately, the whole notion where, the West is saying, we're now looking towards Africa for solutions. And you're asking yourself, okay, why now? And, and you're like, okay, even if I'm saying why now, Africa should take that as an opportunity to actually propel itself, to innovate and to show itself as a continent, to be a continent of people that can innovate and give solutions and not take what is the crumbs that are left behind, and that's for Africans to do for Africans themselves. And it's the same thing. We have to continuously know that nobody is going to give us anything on a silver platter. We have to rise to the challenge.
Right. You know what I like about the idea of saying leaders can be made? It means anybody can be a leader. Anybody who is interested can be a leader. Yeah. Because many people have that excuse.
Or can be anything, Dr. Mutoko, because not
anything they want. Yes, anything they want.
Yeah.
If you put enough time, enough energy, like you are saying, you are not on social media for 2 months. That's a decision so that you can focus. Now, you wonder how many people will get to that level of saying, I'm off social media for 1 week or even 2 weeks so that I focus, Yeah, so it's being intentional.
Yes, it is. Though, sometimes I shy from using that word. I think it's overused, but it is being intentional. But and not even to be hyperbolic about how I view things. Like truly, the word possibility is something that should be front of mind at all times. Because who controls the construct? Who controls the construct of your life? Because a construct is what it is that you evolve into. A construct is that which is constructed. And the things that we're usually blind to, the things that we take as second nature and we allow ourselves to fall back into because it's comfortable, are those very things that can be used, to self-weaponize, those things that can be used to destroy us and to mislead us into a false sense of security. It's very similar to the whole notion of money. A lot of people forget it's not about how much money you make, it's about what you do with it. You can make a lot of money and, waste all of it. And somebody can make, and you look at the ladies that we work with, ever since I started working, I work for government, non-government, now I work in the private sector. The people that clean in our roles, in our jobs, like the people that you see at work that clean the facilities, clean the grounds, each one of those people owns property, has paid off for that property, and when they own that property, do not own that property, yet they earn very little because they're working from a place of, they're not able to have access. Sometimes they don't even have access to banking, forget about access to lines of credit, whereas you're sitting there, you've got access to all these lines of credit, and you're surrounded by what seems to be wealth, all the trappings of wealth, which is really wealth. It's masquerading as wealth, but it's also a form of imprisonment, and a form of self-oppression. Because to be honest, a lot of us are married to certain work environments simply because we can't have the freedom to walk away, because we don't have that liberty, because we perceive ourselves as being somewhat beholden to certain elements. And a lot of people have found themselves very much compromised throughout history and throughout time, simply because of certain financial decisions that they have made as a result of certain leanings that they have. That's just the other thing. So I just think that at any given point in time, that there are no absolutes, there are no rights and wrongs. To add even more context to why I'm not even on social media, sometimes I think I'm a bit too opinionated. Who cares? Who cares about my opinion? Why should they care about my opinion? Why should I even have an opinion over others? So sometimes it's time to step back and to kind of like delve inside and look inside rather than always looking externally.
That's amazing. That's amazing. As I listen to you, I see you delving deeper into self-leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah, self-leadership. Yeah. Because before we start leading others out there, we need to be able to master ourselves. We need to be able to say to ourselves, where am I going? Where am I coming from? It's about me. Where am I coming from? Where am I going? And like you are correctly saying, sometimes we have a lot of opinions. We reflect a lot on what others are doing and what others are achieving. And we forget to think about us, and we forget to lead ourselves before we go out there and begin to lead others.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to always favor progress over perfection. Like even when you sometimes look at, for instance, I wanted to steer away from talking about politics, but what always intrigues me about people that are very hard and fast about which political side they belong to, there'll always be those people that belong to a political side where if you, for instance, have a divergent opinion, and this is not even to say you're on the other side, but if you have a divergent opinion, it's like they feel so insulted and they feel so offended. And, even on social media, sometimes you see certain conversations becoming rather toxic because it gets too personal, where people are not really talking about the issues at hand. And you can see that the conversation is not really looking at progress. It's just looking at poking holes into an argument just simply because whatever is happening, even if it's progressive, it's happening to a side that you don't subscribe to. So in my opinion, like, I think, when I look at all political parties within Botswana, I would say all the political parties within Botswana have got their positives and they've got their negatives. The leaders, in my opinion, they're leaders on both sides, and can they lead? Some have not been tested and some have been tested. It's easier to criticize people that are actually doing the work, but it's also important to think about the value of having those that can actually come in to be tested. Sometimes, we would want, I would want in my lifetime at least to be able to say, there was a change in the way that we look at our own reality, and we've seen how others can lead. Sometimes you're like, okay, you think it's that easy? Come into the kitchen, and feel the warmth and the heat, and let's see what you'll say then. And sometimes you're like, yeah, but you seem to not be passing on the baton. It's a relay race. Can you please pass on the baton so that others can also lead? And I think in life with everything, I tend to favor progress out of perfection. And I think, people have to understand that when you talk about a strategy, any strategy, be it a national strategy, you know, that strategy has to have a vehicle, and that vehicle is the target operating model. And that target operating model has to be where you can optimize efficiencies the most. And in doing so, you need to really have clear guidelines and clear targets. Targets, first of all, that you're aspiring to reach, and guidelines around how, you know, you're going to get there, being your strategy. So I'm always curious to understand the design principles that underpin anything, any argument, any kind of plan. When you come to me and you make promises, I'm like, yeah, I hear the promises. It's easy to make the promises, but how are you going to achieve that? And I don't care about where it's been done, because I think if you see it, you imagine it, you have enough passion to believe that it can be done. It can be done. But then the second part then goes back to what I said very early in the conversation: the pack. Who you're the wolf. You know, who's your pack? You know, who are you running with? You know, who are you trying to like get this done with? You know, because you can be as good as anything, you know, but you could literally be sitting there having a conversation by yourself if you don't have a pack that's going to be able to help you deliver on the promise. And you see this across, you know, and I say this with a little bit of a smile on my lips. You see this because, you know, I think everybody, you know, I think everybody who promises to lead in a particular way in whatever country, in whatever form, they start saying that coming from the best of intentions, eh? But you know, yeah, they also say the road to hell is paved with the best intentions. So I'm a believer in doing and in seeing real output, because when you look at the social infrastructure of any country or any society, the people that suffer the most are the ones that are at the bottom, the men on the streets. And the more we sit on some of these decisions, and the more we seem to be dilly-dallying in whatever shape, even if you're sitting at an office and you're not signing off on something simply because you don't have the time. Somebody else might be waiting on that signature in order for them to implement something that's going to transform their lives or the lives of others.
Very interesting. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And when you continue referring to the pack, I'm just saying to myself, good leaders are good at building teams and keeping the teams intact and making sure they put the right people in the right places. So that's quite interesting. I wanted you to also educate us on what are the 5 top challenges of senior executives?
I think, you know, being able to reach and ensure, like, because a lot of senior executives that, well, let me just say, a lot of senior executives that work within my kind of environment would be working within a profit-making type environment. Right. If it's not profit-making, where you're looking at the bottom line, you know, I think what the first challenge is to be able to come up with sustainable business models that don't compromise our values, you know, our values both at a personal level and an organizational level. That's the first bit. I think so top of mind is to say we don't want to compromise our values. And when I say sustainable, it has to, those levels of pivots of how you're going to achieve healthy profit margins will always be within the context of, say, safety, you know, and not just physical safety, but emotional safety, psychological safety. Because corporate environments or work professional environments can be tough. That's the first one. The second one is ensuring that those profit margins are also attained in a manner where there's a notion of sustainability, that whatever success comes from the attainment of that organization's aspirations does not come at the expense of the larger populace, that there's a thought around legacy, and not just legacy of the business itself being sustainable and living beyond the people that are currently leading it, but legacy in terms of from a corporate social investment perspective. And I say this because for me, I think, you know, corporate social investment speaks to sustainability and ensuring that the way that business is conducted is not an impediment to the communities within which it's conducted. And this can be with everything, hey? I think the other challenge for leadership is constantly ensuring that you ensure succession beyond yourself. You ensure success beyond your own livelihood within a particular position. I think a lot of people find it to be a bit of a contradiction to think of creating people that can replace you, or creating, you know, professionals that you work with that can actually come up to the gangplank and do your work, you know, as well as you, if not even better. Because a lot of people tend to wrestle, a lot of leaders will wrestle with their own livelihood. But if you're a really, really good leader, should you not be able to come into a position, do what you need to do, grow other leaders within that environment that can take forth and, you know, take it to the next level. So, and that touches on the other challenge, and is the challenge of letting go, the challenge of letting go of work, the challenge of walking away from certain environments when you've contributed enough. My good friend Ploli Mumba always talks about the good dancer who outstays their welcome on the stage, you know. There's nothing more sad than seeing a person, you know, start off well and be liked and be loved and be respected, and then at a certain point in time, people are just like, yeah, now it might be time for you to go. You know, and front of mind to look at another African leader, when I think about that, I always conjure up the image of Remo Gabe, because he's one such person who was loved and admired, and I mean, even up to today, his intellect is unparalleled when we talk about, you know, peerless intellectuals. But at the same time, the intellect that he did not translate itself into actual actions. And one can even argue that at the end, you know, it was very sad to see the way in which he parted ways with leadership, because it was imposed on him rather than something that he gracefully gave up. I think as well, you know, the last, I think, you know, I've touched on 4. The last one, I think is the notion of really understanding the bigger macroeconomic landscape that leaders fall in. I think a lot of people, you know, like for instance, you look at all these parastatal CEOs, or, you know, the CEOs or the leaders within private sector organizations, and sometimes you wonder whether they understand the connectiveness of what they do vis-a-vis the next person. Is there an understanding of how it all comes together, you know, within a macro landscape that is about, you know, the provision of actual services and livelihoods to millions of people, not only within a country, but within a continental ecosystem and within a universal, you know, or global ecosystem. I mean, you look at the coronavirus, it started off in China, and when we first started hearing of it, a lot of us it was like they're talking about something that's happening in space, and look at how close it is to us now. So that in itself shows you the connected elements of life and how we're becoming more and more connected, and the world is now truly becoming flat. And I think challenges for a lot of leaders is to understand that fusion of ideals within a global context and within a localized context, and how they all relate.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you.
It sounds like I'm just speaking English, right, Willard? I'm not sure whether I'm articulating myself in a way that's understandable. Sometimes I get lost in my own ideas.
Don't worry, my sister. You are doing well. We have quite a lot of participants here. So far, I've seen one chat, and I'm going to read it shortly. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's feel free to ask questions, to ask for clarity and things like that. And I'm assuming that if people are quiet, Mponang, they are just enjoying the way I'm enjoying. Let me try to sum up the 5 challenges that you presented. The first one, you talked about sustainable business models. In other words, obviously, when you are a leader in an organization, particularly the for-profit, you want to make sure that profits are coming in. That's the bottom line. That's how I understood it. When I'm done summarizing, please, if I am summarizing in my own way, help me to come back, Mponang. The second one, you talked about legacy, corporate social investment, you know, being concerned about the environment we are working in. And then the third one, constantly ensuring success beyond self. You see, there is something about you, Mponang. You know, me knowing you, me having listened to you several times, and seeing the different ways in which you are serving in society, and your definition of leadership, and then looking at the challenges, the way you presented them, these things are flowing smoothly. Now, you talk about constantly ensuring success beyond yourself, growing other leaders. Many people are afraid of grooming others to become better than themselves. Many people are afraid to hire professionals who are better than themselves. But we all know that for you to be a successful entrepreneur, for you to be a successful leader, you need to surround yourself with people who even know more than you know, and not think of you alone, but what happens after I am gone. And then you talked of number 4, letting go, so that you finish well. And you gave a very good example. You are performing in front of an audience. I think we have seen it several times. You're performing in front of an audience. You get to a level where people start clapping, and you think they are clapping because they are enjoying. Meanwhile, they are saying, it's enough, thank you, go. But you put more energy, you continue performing because you don't even realize that you should be done. So I think that's the same thing that you were telling us there. As a leader, you need to be able to do your work. When you are done with your work, let others take over the vision, and then it continues like that. And of course, number 5, you talked about looking at the bigger picture. As a leader, I think starting from as an individual, leading myself, not just thinking of me, but thinking of the country, thinking of the continent, thinking of the world. You know, when you are leading, when you are in a position somewhere, whether in a family or in the community, or you are at national level or you're at organizational level, whatever it is, don't think just about you. You know what, Mponang? There was a time when I was talking to some people in a seminar, and I said to them, how many of you pray for China? How many of you pray for America? You know, people laughed at me. People laughed because they didn't understand where I was coming from and where I was going. That was well before COVID-19. And then I asked the people, as a country, Botswana, we sell diamonds, and we know what diamond is doing to the economy. Who are our major customers? That's where now people begin to see the sense in what I was saying, to say, you see, praying for China, praying for America. It may not necessarily be praying, but being conscious of the fact that we are in a global village. And I think that's a very powerful point you raised there.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't mess up any of your points.
No, not at all, not at all. Read the chats.
The chat, okay, cool. Let me go to the charts. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to the charts. McDonald Mutele says, many of us have felt and witnessed the great inspirational leadership you provide in a corporate setting. Have you ever considered a political career for you to take your type of leadership and learnings to Botswana? Your mindset and thinking would add a lot of value in Botswana's policy and decision making. Over to you, Mponang.
A very common question. You know, I think some of the greatest careers are killed by politics. I think it's a double-edged sword. One does want to do for country, but I think there are ways that you can do for country outside of politics. I personally don't think I have the bandwidth, you know, the tolerance level to ever find myself do well within a political role. I also doubt, you know, like I also doubt whether when it comes down to it, whether people would even vote for somebody like me, because I think at a certain level, you know, mine is to work more on the social development front. I don't have the ability. I think, you know, politics seem, to me at least, and I'm saying this admittedly coming from a place that's not very intimate with politics because I've never been a politician. I have a few friends that have tried to go that way, and I think it doesn't help that those of them that did endeavor to go in that direction got quite burnt. I think if there's I think that there's a movement of people that are doing great work on a social development front, and I can use my influence to galvanize those people to action so that we can serve the common man. I think that would be more my calling than a life within a political type context, because I struggle, you know, where I struggle to understand things. It always comes across to me as if there's a certain level of psychophancy that comes with a political career. I could be wrong, but I'm trying to, you know, Doc, I'm trying to find the most diplomatic way that won't get me
I can see
to express my my reticence when it comes to a political career.
yeah.
But it just wouldn't be something that my personality or my character would lend itself easily to. But in terms of serving Botswana at large and, you know, doing great and amazing work, that's certainly what my calling is. And it's certainly, you know, I'm certainly building a pack of individuals who shall do that work with me. But I'm just one of those kind of characters that cannot be tamed. I cannot be silenced. I cannot be told what to eat, when to eat, how to eat it, and how to think. And so it has always seemed to me that with politics comes a lot of towing of the line, and it wouldn't be a fit for me.
All right. Thank you so much, Mponang, for answering that. Yes, politics. You know, you do the way I do. I always tell people, like on the show here, we try to avoid politics because I feel like business and politics do not mix very well. Although it's difficult to completely run away from politics, because when you are talking of national economics or international economics and so on, you end up having to touch on politics here and there. You know, there's no harm in us, you know, suggesting policy changes and things like that, unless somebody is cut out for politics. I don't think politics is for everybody, like Mponang is saying. Mponang, there are charts coming like fire now, and I'm happy with that. Now, what are some of the main challenges in the work of human capital practitioners?
I think continuous development of an evolved and prepared workforce. I think the way in which, and you know, BAC having been my employer and it being your current employer, I think the way in which we educate has to change, because you know, the world is now moving towards skills rather than real skills that can be utilized on the job front, rather than education that one has acquired and it's theoretical. You know, as a human capital practitioner, I also think, you know, there's a challenge to continuously evolve the tools that we use, not just for selection, but for L&D. I am quite excited about the kind of work that, you know, is being opened, the frontiers that are being opened for the human capital practitioner, because, you know, the world of work is evolving. They used to say the future world of work is it's no longer the future world of work. It has arrived. It's now here, and it's evolving at a very fast pace. And the greatest challenge, I think, is being able to come up with tools that are fair and transparent when it comes to selection, and to ensure that once you have selected the right candidates, they are actually sitting in the right chairs, and to ensure that the L&D solutions, the learning and development solutions are continuously evolving. Because now L&D is not, you know, when you look at the frontier of L&D, it's digital rather than analog, and a lot of it is also self-driven, because there's a lot of content. Like this interview right now, whoever has not, you know, logged on can always listen to it at a later point in time, because there are different ways in which you can consume content. There are different ways in which you can create content that can also be consumed by others. So it's the world is vibing at a current that is quite exciting, but it's very fast. You know, one of the expressions that I like using is and I picked it up from my current employer. It's a VUCA world. You know, it's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, it's ambiguous. So, you know, it's a challenge, because the way in which our populations or our communities have been socialized negates the growing of skill sets that allow a person to be able to move in an agile manner in very ambiguous and murky waters, because people still ask for a job description. The world is moving more and more towards how can you make yourself relevant so that you can fit within a particular sphere where you can offer us a service that we need so that we can unlock value, you know, and there's more of a requirement for people to do more with less. And sometimes for people to test muscles that they don't even know they had or they had grown. So it's very much a world that's geared towards get on with it. And I'm not too sure how many people are ready or have the mind frame of get on with it in our environments, and specifically within this environment. So that those are the challenges. Read the chat. I want to hear what
the chat. You know what?
Yeah.
I wanted us to just to finish those questions that we had there, and we go to the chat. Fire.
Yeah.
I like, you know what I like about your response that you just gave now. You were not just responding to the challenges of human capital practitioners, but you were already zeroing into employees and potential employees, that they have to be adaptable. It's no longer about job description. It's about what value you can add.
Yep, opportunities, being able to recognize opportunities, seize those opportunities,
right,
and to run with them and to evolve them to be more, yeah.
Perfect. So what policy changes are needed now in firms and at national level or international level, seeing that the climate is very volatile?
I don't want to touch on policy changes, but I'll touch on areas that I think can take the country forward. Without a doubt, in my mind, education and health.
Education and health.
Yeah. If I was education and health, because I think through education and health, you'll be able to unlock, individuals. You'll be able to build an emerging cultural shift in thinking that will lend itself to all these other solutions. I mean, you look at technology infusion in places like South Korea a few years ago. I mean, South Korea right now has one of the most robust education systems in the world. And that is particularly significant in that, you know, at a certain point in time, when people were thinking of innovation, they were just thinking China. I mean, then you go to China and you look at how China in terms of innovation, and China in terms of innovation, it's light years ahead of the United States. You know, and it's continuously evolving light years, you know, ahead of the United States. So at which point did the United States kind of slow down and then China went past? And if you look at it, central to that is the fact that they really focused on their health systems, their education systems, because as long as people are healthy, they will live longer. And as long as people, and the education has to be continuously adapting to what's relevant in the world. I often talk about Rwanda, and I know some people have thoughts around Rwanda and the fact that it does, you know, sometimes seem to be a benevolent dictatorship of sorts. But I think, you know, there is an element of value in some of what you see coming out there. I think also, you know, you can have the best policies in the world, which is why I don't want to talk about policies, because I think we already have those policies. But underlying that whole fulcrum is really the bedrock of implementation. You can talk about these things all you like. At a certain point in time, make decisions, bite the bullet. If you make mistakes, you make mistakes, you know, fail fast, get in there, do what you need to do. If you make a mistake, get out real fast, you know, implement something that you can now see has the benefit of hindsight, you know. For me, I think it's so important for you to come in, make a mistake and learn from that mistake and then iterate as you move forward with that iteration because you've learned from the mistake that was made. I think there is no value in people that sit there and talk about ideas for donkey years without doing anything, without changing, because we're just so held back by some kind of oppressive fear. And that fear is self, you know, motivated. That fear is coming from within us rather than from anything else. Like right now, you know, you ask people, okay, why hasn't this happened? Why hasn't this? Nobody can tell you why certain things have not happened. but education and health, key areas of focus, education and health, and then everything else comes into place. It's almost like this whole notion of when you're thinking about a life and you're curating your life and you start thinking about money, I want to make money. No, the money comes, what is your calling? What are you passionate about? What do you want to do with it? And, the monetization of it comes naturally. I can tell you, as a matter of fact, the money always comes, but it follows passion. You have to get in there, be passionate about, look at your passion and understand your passion and run after your passion and work on that relentlessly. And hard work, of course, never hurt anybody.
That's amazing. That's amazing. When you talk of passion, sometimes as an individual, you even think you are crazy. For example, I'm passionate about inspiring leaders and empowering entrepreneurs. So like today, I came from church. From church, I have this interview. After this interview, I have another interview around 10 p.m. So sometimes I sit down and say, don't I get tired? But because it's in me, I can't stop it. Somebody else will be asking, how do you manage to do all these things? When you follow your passion, there's some, I don't know whether to call it supernatural, power that comes on you to keep going where some people would have given up. And obviously, we have different passions, we have different visions, and we need to be able to identify that. You have said something very interesting, Mponang. You said something very deep. It's not always about sitting down to draft policies, but it's also about implementation. And, earlier on, I was discussing with my son before this interview, and he asked me, Daddy, so what would you say is your major takeaway from the COVID-19 crisis? Then I said, okay, fine. I gave him what I thought to say, okay, one of the things obviously is that as individuals and as businesses, it's important to save for the future. And it's also important to be adaptable and things like that. Then I turned the tables and I said to my son, what is your major takeaway from the COVID-19? Guess what he said? And I think it supports what you are talking about when you talk about implementation. My son says to me, I have realized that many times as individuals, we have a lot of excuses. We say we don't have time to do A, B, C, D. There we are in COVID-19, where probably the people you were thinking were disturbing you are not there. Some of the things you could have been doing, you're not doing them. But then you ask yourself, throughout this time, how much have you achieved without all those people and all those things? So my son says to me, Daddy, I think many times we think people are a problem. We think things are a problem, but we might actually be the problem because of lack of implementation.
It's true. It's true. And beautiful. I mean, you know what? I mean, Wilbert, we also take our blessings where we can find them. We take our blessings where we can find them. Just FYI for anybody who's on this call and who's on Netflix. This whole weekend, and I think throughout this interview, I've been quoting a lot of some of the stuff that I picked up from it, because my mind works in this way where, I hear someone say something and I see its practical application and I just take it as part of my own repertoire of knowledge. I steal knowledge and content unashamedly. But I'm watching this show on Netflix called Altered Carbon. Altered Carbon. I mean, if you're not shy of gruesome narratives, you might want to watch it. But I mean, I just think the way that it's written, the way that it's, I mean, particularly if you're into psychological thrillers, yeah, Altered Carbon. But as well, I've just been watching Becoming. I read the book, by Michelle Obama, and I was watching the documentary. I found it fascinating. And my daughter, one of my kids was telling me about the Beyonce documentary as well, when she had a show last year or the year before last, and she like galvanized and she brought in and she infused like the whole culture around African American culture on a stage never been done before in Coachella, and you begin to understand that certain people, she's an artist, but she's also a businesswoman, and a very good businesswoman at that. And I think before we finish, if there's one thing, before we take on comments and questions that I can tell you, is that what I'm learning at this point in my life is how to truly monetize and run my own repertoire of knowledge from a business perspective. and not just because it can be social development work that you're very passionate about, but I'm also selfishly guarding my time and the utilization of my time in a manner where I can be and do more, be more to many more people and do more for many more people, because I've successfully, began to understand how I can run what I do for a living, outside of, my professional formal work as a true corporate. Like, I should be able to say, no, I'm not going to, I'm not going to show up unless you've paid me, which I think culturally we as Botswana were always kind of shy of saying these things. But, you look at people like your Beyoncés and you look at people like that in the world, you're like, yeah, this person is running this like an enterprise. You're Bona Mateba. She's an enterprise, and I think we when it comes to entrepreneurship, we need to really learn that nothing is for free. And because we have a paternalistic society where everything, almost everything has been given to us because our government parents us, sometimes our own sense of self-determination and self-will can be found quite lacking.
Amazing. I was going to ask you, give us advice for entrepreneurs, and you have already done it.
Yeah, it's so important to monetize that. When I see a couple of people on this call who were in the different cohorts that the TGM cohorts that I've run, those people will be very, very glad to know that, yeah, I now run my entity as a proper business on one level. Let's read the chats.
I'm going to the chats, Mponang. I am not playing at all. All right, we are in the chats. Okay, so Laone Utukile says, what is your position on the role of emotional intelligence in leadership? I'm a final year MBA student, and my experience with some organizations I've worked with recently is that they often fail to place value on the importance of emotional intelligence and how it impacts the overall work environment. Over to you, Mponang.
Yeah, I've seen, I've been blessed in that I've always worked for like amazing people, but I've seen, I've borne witness, I've seen friends and certainly heard stories of people that have made working environments unpalatable or unlivable. I think there's you can bold, underline, and even increase the font of the words emotional intelligence when it comes to what's most important. I think you can find a person whose IQ, intelligence quotient might be quite low, but if their emotional intelligence is very, very strong and very good, or if they're interested in working on growing their emotional intelligence, those people go so much more further because, at any given point in time, and I'll give you an example of something that truly illustrates emotional intelligence is, like with chess. In a game of chess, there's the player and the people that are playing the chess and the people that, on both sides of the chessboard, and then the game is evolving on the chessboard. At any point, you're either on the chessboard or you're one of the players. You have to know, and sometimes you'll be one of the players, and sometimes you're on the chessboard, depending on what it is you want. I always say to people, emotional intelligence is sometimes going through experiences that make you uncomfortable, but you're focused on what the end game is and what it is that you're trying to achieve. Some might say the end justifies the means. I don't mean in certain instances where you do less than ethical things and you say that. I'm talking about where sometimes you are able to control your own emotions. You're able to control whatever frustrations that you might be going through. There's a lot of noise in the background. I think my neighbors are playing music. But anyway, like the point is for you to be able to control and rein in your own emotions in a manner where you can have your eyes on the prize, where you can really focus on that which is key. What compromises are you willing to make? Are those compromises worth it? What sacrifices are you willing to make? Are those sacrifices worth it? And when you come into the work front, be acutely aware of the fact that the way that you treat others, you should treat others in the same way that you would want to be treated. But I think as well, work environments need to work towards having anti-bullying policies, anti-harassment policies. Work environments need to demand of leaders to be greater than just the representation of their positions. It shouldn't be okay for a leader to feel that they can speak to others in any which way, you know. And this is why work environments have grievance policies. And of course, people will say that's idealistic because the minute you put in a grievance, you know, you're going to get punished for it. But I think corporations and work environments need to evolve to a point where everybody needs, you know, feel safe in different ways. But I'm very, very much a believer in emotional intelligence.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mponang. I really appreciate that. And to Laone and the rest of the participants, I did a video with one of my, the people that I act with. We did a video and we put it on our YouTube channel. It's called Dr. Wilbert Mutoko. And it talks about why it is important to have emotional intelligence in the workplace. Why emotional intelligence is important in the workplace. And you realize that I really support what Mponang is saying. We need anti-bullying policies. And guess what I've realized in the workplace? You also have some juniors that bully their seniors. I don't know whether it's still called bullying. We have leaders that bully their followers. And then you also have somebody in your team who is working with you and you are the leader and they bully you. So it's not acceptable either way. So having those policies, I think it will be very helpful. All right, should I move to the next one, Mponang?
Yes, yes, please.
Kahiso Mfam, he says, I stand to be corrected, but one of the true measures of success as a leader is better at a point where one sees leadership as something beyond themselves, even their generation. I, for one, as a leader, believe that my life is beyond just the self. My calling as well is of a far much greater purpose than myself. Is that something you say you experience?
Yeah, but yes. Kaliso, I think so. But you see, I don't identify myself. I don't identify myself as a leader from a place of betterment or from a place of see myself as being superior, but more from a place of influence. Because for me, it's not about, you know, where you are, like being on the top. And this is most likely my last comment. You know, like I don't know if you guys have, you know, the story of the emperor who's wearing no clothes, or the emperor is wearing no clothes, or the empress wears suits, you know, and it's really somebody who's wearing no clothes. I think for me, I think, and I go back to what I said to Dr. Mutoko, that I think a leader is somebody who's both born and grown, you know. It's not a one size fits all. But I think at the very core of that is a very, 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 very deep-seated sense of humility. It's almost like the things that we do is for other people to speak about them and to notice them and to celebrate them rather than for us to highlight. Even in the description of ourselves, I think leaders will lead, you know, because they lead. That's what they do. You know, that's what they're propelled to do, compelled to do, called to do, born to do in some part, or have been grown to be, you know. But at the end of the day, when all is said and done, you can't just be a leader for the sake of being a leader. What have you done? How have you improved the argument of what it is that you found being in a particular stage to improve it or to grow it to a different state? That to me is leadership. So I think we share a viewpoint there, Kahiso, to some extent, but I wouldn't say where we don't share a viewpoint you're wrong. It's your perspective and you should own it. You know this, having been a TGMer, that for me, I believe in a polarity of views, and you know, knowing you as I know you are indeed a leader, and I'm intrigued to see what kind of leader you're going to grow into being as you evolve as a person.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mponang. We have another chat from Umpile Masuku. One of my favorite sayings of yours is rise above the fray. How have you remained centered and focused over the span of your career, especially in instances where you find yourself in environments that do not necessarily support who you are and your values?
Yeah. You know, like I found myself in professional environments where I have to come in and do what I need to do, and, you know, not compromise my own work ethic value, and get out. You know, I'm one of those people that I can really separate myself. You know, I'm a huge believer, because I've had to survive a lot in my life. I'm a, you know, a primary provider, and I have not had the luxury at all times of just walking away because I could. But I also, you know, I have learned that if I can see that there's not an environment that embraces who I am, and it's not palatable to who I am as a person, I slowly but surely work towards what is my next step, you know. And if you are to trace my career, you'll see that everything that I do it with, you know, the next move in mind. Right now, I'm about, well, I've published, and actually I published a book. I was going to be released on the 3rd of May, but it was during COVID. It means that I have to be smart about it, because from a business perspective, when do I launch it, and launch it at the right time? Over the years, I've been collecting content, and as I've been collecting this content, I've been readying myself for the next stage in my evolution. Will I work for a company, or will I work for self? And if I work for self, what is it that I'm going to be selling? What quality will it be? How competitive would it be? How relevant would it be? Because now you can't be talking about speaking within a hall and you're inviting people to come and listen to you speak. You know, you have to be thinking about technology infusion and how that technology infusion can be something that you can, like what you're doing right now, you know. It's not just about podcasts, you know, it's about thinking about a blog podcast, and, you know, thinking about so many different ways that can really galvanize what I'm about in a way where I can still serve my greater purpose, which is social development work as well. So that requires focus. There are times where I've had to stop seeing certain people, that friendships that I've had to gracefully walk away from, or associations that I've had to decline delving more into, simply because they would not lead me in the direction that would take me towards the attainment of that which I think can get me to the next dimension of my life. I mean, I don't know if you guys watched the SpaceX launch. It was fascinating, you know, and you know, I'm particularly, I think I have a great degree of respect for people that work in that line of work. Certainly for Elon Musk. I mean, but you know, SpaceX was launched, people went into space. I mean, and then you'll still find people that are having a rather pedestrian conversation about, you know, who's in the matter between or some such. And you know, Peter, to your point, I don't have time for such. But over and above not having time for such, I just don't tolerate certain conversations. Certain conversations, if you hear that conversation was had, you will know for a fact that Matlhogonolo Mponang was nowhere near it. So, you know, I just think, I once said to a friend of mine that, you know, focus and just being able to stay above the fray is very, very important, because we live in a society where there are a lot of people who claim to have all these lofty ideals, but when you look down, you know, you really see what they're about. They're just common criminals who have very good marketing skills. So I don't have time, you know, for that type of individual, or for those type of conversations. And at work, I avoid them like the bubonic plague. But work so hard, Umpile, as well. Hone your craft so hard, so much that you can always walk away from an environment if it needs to come to that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mponang. I think you have emphasized there that you need to avoid trivialities, be focused, run away from people that can derail you. And also another thing I liked that you said is that while you are in an environment that you feel is not necessarily for you, do your best there. In my understanding, that's what I heard you saying. Do the best that you can, you know, which is within your values and everything, but at the same time, have an exit strategy. And I see some people, in some cases, the lack of emotional intelligence can be a problem also. But again, it's difficult to tell, because sometimes it's difficult to understand what people are going through in their workplaces. Like you were saying earlier, we cannot say this is the advice for somebody in the corporate, when things are like this, do this. It depends. So definitely it helps, if possible, for you to be there, do the best that you can, but have an exit strategy. Don't just say, I'm quitting, and then you find yourself having to come back to beg. And Mponang, still on that, congratulations on the book.
Thank you. I look forward to sharing it with the world. Yeah, I look forward to sharing it with the world.
You make us proud. Are you able to share with us the title, or it's too early?
No, I already did. Yeah, and there's a story behind that. It's the urine of the sun. You know, like when it's sunny outside and then all of a sudden it just rains and then it stops just as suddenly. But yeah, the title is in Setswana, but the undercover has translated it into English. It's likely to be out, if not, depending on what happens with the rest of the world, if not towards the end of this year, but the beginning of next year. I've just finished a lot of content development as well on the second one, but I don't plan on releasing the second one until maybe late next year. The whole thing is right now at this point in my life, I'm getting onto the next level of what it is that I'm doing with my life post in a professional setting. Having said that though, I love what it is I do. I love the space I'm in. I love the organization that I work for. And, you know, I love the level of exposure that is offered me and the level of insight that it's given me. You know, you learn out of all sorts, eh? And I just think that, I've grown a lot in the past year. And I continue to look forward to interacting with all of you as I meet you and interact with you. And I'm amazed by how much I'm learning from younger people and from those people that would otherwise not be seen to be able to teach me anything. I'm continuously learning and growing, and I thank God for it. Yeah.
It comes from a heart of humility, Mponang, to be able to learn from everybody and anybody. I think many people, when they get to a certain level in life, they say to themselves, I'm done, you know, maybe people should now be listening to me. Anyway, let me not take much time there. Pearl says, do you think as a country we have done enough to put in place leadership programs that target younger people who have the potential to be groomed into leadership roles? And what do you think can be done there to try and make those programs visible to younger people across the country, not only those who may have the privilege of staying in urban areas?
Yeah, I don't think we have. Part of what it is that I plan on doing with my next level of life, and I say this as we close off, is to actually take a program like TGM and to take it across the country. I am more than willing to give the government the blueprint. I've offered to do so for Ministry of Youth to run with it. I'm more than willing to help them set it up. Because for me, it's I don't think something like a co-share mentoring program is something that one should guard jealously and, you know, not share. You know, a huge part of it is exactly that. I also think we can see a lot more young people being put on boards. I think with, you know, I think just being able to sit on different boards, different people coming in and not seeing the same people sit on boards over and over again would be of value. I happen to be one of those people that sometimes I remember recently I was saying to somebody, it's almost like being recycled over and over again. I'm almost like a done rag. So I do think young people need to be placed on boards. I think young people need to be given opportunities of leadership. I think people my age need to step back. I'm 46 years old right now. I don't think I should work past, at the latest, 50. I think, you know, we should with intent say that anybody who's 50 and older should be moving away and allowing, you know, creating space so that others can come in and take this country forward to the next level. I think the recycling of people that have been there, the dinosaurs, that is dead. You can't progress, you know, you can't progress a country with that type of thinking. We all, you know, all get to the parameters of our own understanding and knowledge. There's a certain point in time where an organization should be able to say, yeah, Matlhogonolo, you know, we've learned, we've heard you, we thank you, but can we hear from others as well, you know? Progressive society, you know, progressive societies are actively hinging and have actively always hinged along the notion of a relay race and the passing on of a baton. And of course, you know, it's time for people like me to enter the Council of Elders, Dr. Mutoko. I to sit there and share, you know, and you know, have people draw from my experience. But it would be ridiculous if someone like me was still working past a certain age.
Right. I think you have said it so well. And it's something to be desired for, you know, people to gracefully leave leadership positions for others to take over. That's awesome. Thank you so much. And the last chat that I have here, there's another one that just came in. Laone Utukile says, the concept of entrepreneurship is one that is well regarded in developed nations. In your experience as a human capital practitioner, do you think organizations in Botswana have work environments that foster entrepreneurs?
I don't think they do. I think it's an emerging thought process within our society. I think certainly a lot of environments in the past, like both, I remember KBL at some point when it was going through redundancies, did have an entrepreneurship program for staff members who were leaving. I think, you know, environments like your LEA, for instance, have worked with, for instance, with BAC to work with entrepreneurs that are out there. You know that program, Dr. Mutoko, of the School of Business, where the young business leaders get out there and they're in a work environment where they're practicing what they've learned in school, and you're seeing that translated in work fronts. I think programs like that are needed more and more, and I think certainly for the fostering of entrepreneurs from a CSI perspective, organizing. So, that it's an area that can.
Right. Thank you so much, Mponang. The last one is from Mompati Kutlo. Mompati Kutlo's iPad. It says, mine is rather a message than a comment. Thank you so much for the insightful information. You never cease to amaze me at Ms. Mponang. You are an elegant being from your son.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mponang.
Yeah.
Thank you, all the participants. Mponang, I don't know whether you have any last words for leaders and entrepreneurs or employees.
Nothing really except to say, go out there and be the best version of yourself. It sounds like a cliche. Go out there, be fearless. Go out there. You know, the fact that you're on this chat at this time on a Sunday, you know, on a warm day like the day that it is here, and you're not listening to what Mem Masarami has to say about how we can imbibe in the next couple of weeks, shows that you're serious about your own development. It's a starting step. And I just really, really, you know, wish everybody on this call, you know, the very best of what life has to offer. And that extra set of eyes that can see beyond just our current, but also what is to come, and for everyone to be able to prepare themselves so that they can be able to swim in those waters. Nothing but thank you for your time, for having logged on, for having listened, and for having participated.
Mponang, thank you so much for your time. We can't thank you enough. And for our participants, you are the best. Thank you so much for being here. Imagine we could have just been the two of us with Mponang, but you came along and you have asked questions, you have listened, you have partaken. We really appreciate you, and the Lord bless you. God bless you, Mponang. God bless you, the participants. I would really get it as an honor if as many of you as possible will subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's Dr. Wilbert R. Mutoko. Mponang, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you? Are there any contact details or website or anything you would want them to reach you?
Yeah, I have my official Facebook page. It has people that check messages there, and I also have a YouTube channel as well. You can leave me messages on there. Yeah, and basically, I'm very much somebody who is highly accessible. Anybody who wants to get in touch with me will be able to get in touch with me, trust me.
Definitely. Thank you so much. So please, if you are on the call and you have not yet subscribed to Mponang's YouTube channel, please do so as soon as possible so that you don't miss out on any future videos. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Mponang. God bless you.
God bless you too. Cheers.
Okay, bye-bye.